Hey everybody, welcome to another Street Epistemology video review stream. Today I have a bunch of people here. I've got Eddie, Nathan, and Dali. What's up, you guys? How's it going?
Hello.
Howdy.
Today
So
we're
well.
going to be watching one of Eddie's videos that was uploaded last November. What is this video about, Eddie?
A Christian actually reached out to me and wanted to have a discussion about SE and basically try to SE him. So I was like, sure, why not? And so that was the result of that.
Yeah, I saw his name as like Common Sense Epistemologist.
Yeah.
Pretty related to SE, I guess.
I don't really know him besides this. He just kind of reached out and he was a big fan of his epistemology and was interested in the topic. And so he kind of just wanted to fill out what SE was all about and then also give some criticisms as well.
Nice. Alrighty, let's jump straight into the video. I've got about 35-40 minutes of the conversation we're going to talk about. Originally like an hour and 20 minutes conversation, so we'll just do the highlights here. Want to set up this first bit, Eddie?
Yeah, so I think he's just kind of introducing himself and how he came to appreciate epistemology, and I think actually he gives street epistemology a lot of praise for what it's attempting to do. But I don't necessarily want to put words in his mouth. I guess you could let him explain it a little.
Yeah, this is starting around 16 minutes in or so. So yeah, we'll just listen and give our thoughts. Here we go.
And I'm curious what your like. I know you got to read part of it.
Yeah.
You're probably rushed for time and everything, but like, what were your initial thoughts of what I brought up? And I'll explain it for the listener a little bit in a second. But yeah, what were your initial thoughts?
Yeah, so I realized what I was reading was probably the part that you disagree with, and so I think that most of it is, not most of it, but the beginning part of it was what you just described now is your appreciation for SE and what it's about. But your disagreements were basically it's too specific when it comes to reasoning, because people don't always able to verbalize all the reasons they have, and so they basically do the best they can, but they end up strawmanning themselves. Is that what you were kind of?
Yes. Yeah. That basically what I noticed from it is it tends to follow this Socratic method, which is can be a very helpful tool, but it tends to get very zoomed in. Like one of the first questions you ask, the SE person asks, is like, what is your strongest reason for belief? So right there, you tend to cut off, like, let's say if the reason you believe has to do with like a kind of a culmination of 5 or 6 different things, you're down to choosing one, which is fine, but you need to be aware, and some people aren't as they're going through this, that you're at a kind of a weakened point when you're only looking at one thing, if there truly are 5 reasons, let's say.
Okay, so he's talking about SE in general, and one of his criticisms is that we kind of focus on one reason or a main reason instead of like a cumulative, getting everything on the table first rather than going to something specific. Is that what he is saying?
Yeah, it's almost like he thinks that SE focuses on one reason, not to tackle that one reason, but to frame it as if that's all they have, when really they have more than that.
Okay, I could see maybe a little bit of grain of truth into that criticism if we don't make that clear in the conversation. This is just one of potentially many reasons, but this is like, we usually ask, what is your best reason, or what is like the main reason? And we kind of start with that. And I guess the implication is that if we discover this reason is somehow faulty, could the rest, if it uses the same epistemology, kind of all follow and be faulty as well? But sometimes that's not the case. So I could see where he's getting this from. So yeah, okay.
Yeah.
All right, let's go a little bit more. Unless you want to say something, Dali or Nathan?
I agree with you. I think it's a question of timing, whether you want to be short enough to say, I only want to hear your best reason, or do you want to give me the long form version? And that has everything to do with how much time you have to spend.
Yeah, we just want to know the best reason, right? I don't see. I mean, I guess my question for him would be, if there should we start with what's your best reason, and if not, why not? How would you, if you were trying to figure out something that somebody else believed and you didn't believe it, how would you start going about understanding what it is that they're saying? And turn it into an outsider test would probably be my approach. But yeah.
Gotcha. Good advice. All right, let's keep going.
And so, okay, you're looking at one thing, and then you're analyzing in this very specific way. And I think it can just leave things with sort of a narrow look at the problem. And some of these problems are very complex and big. And just the example I give in the post is that spam detectors for email.
Yes, I was going to comment on that.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so the example I give is that, and I think this is an analogy to how we live life a lot of times. A spam detector uses a lot of different heuristics to decide if something is spam. And so if you question a spam detector along the lines of a lot of SE methodology, you would say, like, what is your best reason for saying this is spam? And the detector might say, maybe the top reason was that there was a decent amount of all caps in the email. And then the SE person could say something like, okay, well, can you imagine someone sending an email that had all caps that was not spam? And the spam detector would have to say yes, because, like, what if it's a user agreement that was sent when you signed up, and that's not spam? And so then you have to rewind. It's like, okay, so that's not your real reason, for thinking it's spam. And then you rewind, and then you say, well, okay, what's another reason, or your next strongest reason? And the spam detector says it was from an address that was not in your address book. And then you say, well, can you imagine that an email from someone that's not in your address book that is not spam? And once again, the answer is going to be yes, that could happen too. And so it's more of this heuristic. So part of this, to give you a little more background, and I put this in the review, is like, so I have a computer science degree. I've done AI type stuff. And this also just has to do with how my epistemology myself evolved. Yeah, go ahead.
So, okay. So when I was reading that, the part of the critique was basically saying this, when you break it down so specifically, there are exceptions to the rule, to all the reasons that the bot gives. Yeah. And yet the bot is like 95%
success
rate for detecting spam. Well, what I was going through my head was, does the bot know that? And why? And if the bot doesn't know that, it should figure that out and give that as a reason. What is the main reason that you're confident that you can detect spam? I have a 95% success rate. And if it doesn't know that, that's probably one of the situations where it doesn't know why it's so successful. And so, like, for example, the example I give is, if someone says, I believe in evolution because that's what my teacher taught me. It's like, it's a really bad reason, but that's not saying that the belief is false. Just in the same way, the bot is not, the bot is accurate, but it may not know why it's accurate, and so it may give really bad reasons of why it's accurate. It should say, I'm 95%. I have a 95% success rate, and it's based off of many weighted reasons, and so it's something that I think SE can really bring light to even a belief that we know is true. If you have bad reasons for believing something that we already know is true for other reasons, for better reasons, it's better to expose that bad reasoning. Because if you think that's a good reason, like I believed it because that's what my teacher taught me. Mm-hmm. If they take that reasoning and apply it to different beliefs, it could be very, problematic.
Yeah. No, you definitely.
Anything to say so far?
Yeah. I think a better way I could have articulated that would be that we're talking about reasons to uphold a belief, not necessarily reasons why we know it's true. Well, I guess the best way, yeah. So, like, we are talking about a belief and how we can be justified in that belief. We're not necessarily talking about like confirming the belief necessarily. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's two different things where if the bot has no idea that why it's testable, they have data on it, it's 95%, success
Mhm.
rate. If it doesn't know that, it has no idea. It doesn't have any ammunition of why it's so successful. It just knows that it has a method that it goes through.
Yeah. The bot is just a correlation engine. It's these things, and if you score high enough, there's a threshold that I can give you a 2 sigma confidence that this thing's spam. In the case of the spam, you could easily imagine that I could write something in order to get around the spam filter if I know what the spam filter had. And you could easily say that I could write an email intended to be caught by the spam filter. Those would be easy to do. So both exceptions are there. What I really love is that he's already talking about a cumulative case argument that says is being compared to 95% confidence with easy, obvious counterexamples. So he's already talking about something that can't be more certain than that. If I give you a correlation engine that has a 95% confidence, there's no way that I can then say, and look at the reasons that it's using in order to increase your confidence above the 95%. I couldn't say, and look at all these good reasons, so you should be even more sure. It wouldn't work that way. You know it has a 5% failure rate.
And also, there is a difference between 95% accuracy and 95% confident in that belief. The belief and the accuracy are two different things. The accuracy should be giving you a confidence, and you can correlate that. Like, I'm 95% confident because I have 95% accuracy, but they're not the same thing. So if you don't know you're 95% accurate, you shouldn't be 95% confident. Does that make sense?
Yeah, he's using this analogy of a spam filter to talk about multifactorial reasons, to talk about a cumulative case, to talk about kind of like a Bayesian, multiple reasons influences the confidence of the post-story probability. And he's just setting it up as a general epistemology. Eventually he'll get to claims about, miracles and Jesus and Christianity. I'd like to talk about this analogy in terms of those types of claims. Like, we don't have emails coming from dead people. We don't have emails spontaneously coming into existence from, some supernatural realm. Would we be able to use an epistemology related to this spam filter to talk about those types of email claims? Could we use a cumulative case to have confidence that someone has sent an email from the dead or something like that? I don't like. It depends on the claim to justify something. So I need more strong evidence, and a cumulative case is a much better case than just one reason. But really, it depends on the claim, how extraordinary the claim is, that type of thing.
This kind of reminds me of the weatherman thought experiment, which I might have heard from your channel actually first, Eddie. I can't remember if it was from yours or from Anthony's, but the first time I ever heard it, it really stuck with me. And that's, there's 10 different weather people, and they all give the likelihood for a chance of rain. And let's say they all say it's 10% chance of rain. Does the accumulative case of all those different chances of rain equal to 100%? I don't know if that's exactly kind of what we're talking about here, but I feel like I would maybe want to take the conversation in that direction. But yeah.
Yeah, you can't get enough 50% weather forecasts to add up to 90%.
Right.
Yeah.
So we got another minute and a half or so on this section.
Mhm.
Let's see what happens.
Bring up some good points, and I agree with a lot of that. I think what I tend to feel like is SE sometimes pulls the rug out from underneath people without necessarily constructing a chair of good epistemology underneath it. And what I mean by that is it tends to reveal that going through a specific line of reasoning might end up in something absurd. And then they're like, oh crap, should I question everything? And what I would want to do is, like, if someone says, they believe in evolution because of their teacher, there's actually a deeper heuristic there of like, okay, so let's pretend my teacher is wrong. Then how was my teacher wrong? Does this also mean my textbook was wrong? Okay, if my textbook was wrong, why was it printed by the school? So it seems like this is broad agreement among textbooks that evolution is true. So then you've worked your way out to like scientific consensus, and it's a useful exercise. And this is sometimes what SC is designed to do, to get that person to think through that exercise of like, okay, it's not just because my teacher says it, but it's because actually scientific consensus says this, and then you can even ask, well, does that automatically mean it's right as well? I
think that's about the end of that. Yep. Okay. Anything else about that section?
One thing I caught earlier on, he mentioned that he was talking about the bot and how that one of the reasons the bot gave was, not sufficient all the time. And he says, well, that's not your reason. I actually didn't catch that in the live discussion. But that it's not necessarily that if your reason doesn't kind of, confirm your belief, that it's no longer your reason. It's just that it is your reason. It's just that not necessarily a strong reason. But I don't know if you guys heard that. It's like, no, that's not your reason. It's like, no, it's still your reason. Maybe it shouldn't be, but
yeah, maybe he's thinking if we question and doubt one particular reason for a claim and it's not sufficient on its own, then he thinks the SER is accusing someone of saying, well, you shouldn't use that reason at all in the entire case. I don't think we would say that. And if he gets that impression, I think that's not ideal for us. So we want to set the record straight about that. It's about.
I do expect a lot of the time, though, they might have to recognize that they have to throw the whole reason out, and that might be our fault.
Or just re-weight the reason. So if you think this reason gives you this much confidence, but really, if you think about it a little more, okay, it's still a reason, but it's probably here.
Mm-hmm. All right, and then the next section, what is this about? Robert engages the main event by inviting formal SE. That's about 2 minutes here. All right, we'll listen to that.
If they have any.
Yeah. Well, let's do this. I want you to put me on the spot, do some SE on me, because that's what it's about, right? SE is about drilling down on people and humiliating them, right?
Obviously.
Yeah. Just kidding. All right, so we're going to let Eddie do SE just like he does out on the street when there wasn't a pandemic happening. Apologies that your major hobby has been crippled right now, Eddie. Yeah, that sucks.
It's okay. I like video games too, so I'll just pivot. So,
nice, cool. Take it away.
Yeah. So I think that
You want to say something?
Me?
Yeah. It just looked like it. Never mind.
Oh no, sorry.
Okay.
First part of SE, what I usually do is,
if you do want to say something, just wave, make it obvious.
I try to let someone pick what the belief is, and I don't want to get people to pick a belief I want to talk about. It's really about something that they are very confident in, and it's something that is significant. And what I mean by significant is that if they stop believing that tomorrow, it would change their actions. If it changes, and that's a easier way of saying it changes their behaviors. And whatever that happens to be, I'll go with that. But also I like to get them used to, I like to gauge how their confidence works. And so what I usually do is, if I have enough time, is to ask them some hypothetical questions so they understand like how this all works. So, oh man, it's been a while. So let me think. Okay. So I'm going to give you 3 claims, and you tell me how
he wants to say something
that it's true.
So then you go into the Ferrari.
Ferrari test.
I think he just gives your typical answers to the Ferrari, and examples. I think we talk about a tic tac, and even use the whole like car, Ferrari, space shuttle thing. I think I heard that from Reid originally, and it's without saying those words of extraordinary evidence. That's kind of what you cover, like how certain claims require a little more, but I don't really get any problems with that with him. It's just a formality kind of going through it.
Gotcha. And we'll just skip forward past the thought experiments. I think you did the tic tac one too. What was his answer about that? Do you remember?
Actually, I don't remember doing the tic tac. Well, maybe I briefly mentioned it, but it was like I think I interrupted. Was like, I don't think we're gonna have any issues with that. You think you understand truth is objective.
Okay, cool. So then we just fast forward more to his reasons. Here we go.
You want to?
I think we should do, is Christianity true? Just, go for the jugular,
Gotcha. Okay. So one of the questions I would have is, what do you mean by Christianity? What is Christianity?
Right. Yeah. Man, now we're already in tough waters. Like, for me, it's a core sort of a C.S. Lewis mere Christianity is probably the easiest thing. So like a core element of orthodox belief based around the historical Jesus. So not the trappings of like Presbyterianism and all these details. Like I just become less sure about all those details. What it means is like, just put it really simply, that like Jesus was the Son of God, died and rose again died for my sins. And there is only this one God, the Trinity, you could say.
Okay. So the next question I would ask would be like, how confident are you that Christianity is true from like 0 to 100?
I will put it at 75%.
75%. Okay. So usually what I do is the same thing I do with the Ferrari. What would increase your confidence that Christianity is true? Like what would bring you into the 80 or 90% area?
I think one of the number one things would be if it were more and more viscerally true, like having, supernatural experiences all the time that felt very unique and only could it be from Christianity. If like daily that was happening, let's say for myself, where things were happening to me, God was speaking to me, let's say, in an audible voice daily to encourage me, then that would hugely shoot it up.
Okay. And what would decrease your confidence from 75% to something less?
I would say, since this is a relevant topic for me, I've gotten really into miracles type research. And what would knock it down is if, as I kept digging, there was this watershed moment where I discovered this wealth of miracle data from all other religions that felt just as powerful as what I knew for Christianity. Because then it would like really level the playing field, kind of.
Okay.
So yeah, that would be like, okay, I got to rethink some things, not necessarily Christianity as a whole, but like all of a sudden maybe these other religions have more truth than I realized or something. And that, that's lowering confidence in Christianity, you could say.
Okay. That's interesting.
Pretty boilerplate standard essay so far.
Yeah.
Good answers to what would change his confidence, I think, so far. That's pretty good. Want to keep going?
The question about what would bump you up, his answer was, if I'm not mistaken, more supernatural things happening in my life. And so I might have wanted to ask a little bit more about that. Like, if you had supernatural experiences, but they only ever happened to you and no one else could test for them or witness them in any way, would that still count as evidence that would bump you up? Or would you need to have outsider tests for this? In other words, would you need verification from others? And if not, then what do you do when somebody else claims to have a lot of these experiences, and yet no one can verify their experiences? Do we count their experiences to be valid just as much as you would for your own self if no one could test your experiences? That would be like can someone be certain something is happening and yet still be mistaken, and how would we test for that? And it's interesting that what would move him down was a different standard completely than the thing that would move him up. Yeah, really fascinating though. Digging into what would bump me up gets me questioning all the time. Yeah.
Did he say
Another thing is, I'm sorry?
Did he say it was 75%?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. I like to get, specifically, if you saw this, your confidence would go how many percentage points to where?
Ooh.
So if you've got like
Mhm.
whatever X amount of experiences for X amount of Y amount of people, where would your confidence go exactly? 99, 90, 80. So maybe, and down as well. Where would it never go below 50? What would it take to go below 50, or just 74? We could explore that way too.
One thing I found interesting was that what would cause him to doubt Christianity wasn't necessarily like a deconfirmation. It's a confirmation of other things. So like a confirmation that other miracles were happening in other religions I guess he did say it would lower his confidence because he thought it was the only game in town. But if those other ones, he would have to rethink Christianity being I guess maybe he would have to rethink that there's only one God, and that causes conflict with Christianity because it only claims there's one.
Right.
But it wouldn't necessarily deconfirm what's happened necessarily, like the miracles because there's miracles everywhere. So that was an interesting answer.
Yeah. I sort of predict what might happen if he actually looks at that. Is he might look at miracles like, let me assume he's not Catholic, and the miracle of the sun would be not a miracle he would buy into, for example, at I think Fatima. And he looks into that. I suspect what he's going to do is start checking off, nope, that's not a good reason to believe, nope, that's not a good reason to believe, and start disconfirming that miracle. And once he's got a list of reasons to disconfirm miracles, when he starts looking back at his own, he might find that they apply. And that works just as well.
But I don't think that's what he's actually doing, because if you hear what his reason,
I don't think he's doing that yet. I think because he has openly asserted this would change my mind, that has an effect on his confirmation bias to start paying attention to the other ones, and then actively, I suspect I don't know Robert, I suspect most people will end up saying, I don't believe that miracle exists, so let me look for the most obvious reason why I can toss that one out. And they'll end up with a checklist of reasons why they can toss miracles out. And then as soon as those checklist items fall on their own miracles, the house of cards comes down.
That's kind of the direction this goes as far as comparing miracle claims. And I remember specifically asking questions about how to confirm a miracle, but not necessarily, or asking it in a way that doesn't tie it down to a specific religion, which makes it even more neutral, which can be good or bad depending on how you look at it.
All right, let's see what else is up ahead. Here we go. So
what you're saying is that you'd be less confident if you discovered that the types of miracles that have influenced you in Christianity were also reported in other religions.
Right.
Okay. So I guess my next question would be, what type of miracles have affected your confidence in Christianity?
So one quick addendum to what you said as you summed up what I said is that it would be both like magnitude and numbers of miracles together. Like I'm already expecting to see individual instances perhaps that sound similar to something else, but yeah, magnitude, like both the impressiveness of the miracle claim and also like the number. But yeah, to dig into that more. And I should say, like, I realize we could really go down two routes here, because for me, like the two of the sort of pillars for my belief would be the kind of supernatural stuff on one end, and then like the historical stuff about Jesus and the resurrection and stuff. So if you had a preference, we could go down either path. I know, I guess you tend to leave it up to the person you're interviewing. But,
yeah, it's, whatever reason that comes to mind that gives you like the most confidence of.
All right. Well, we're already talking miracles. We'll do that. The one reason I hesitate is I've done like 3 or 4 episodes talking about miracles. So in case my viewers were a little sick of it, but let's stick with that. That's what we're on. So, so for me, and this is part where I have a little trouble with street epistemology, I think, because there are individual instances. So we could boil it down to a single account. But that is not actually what is most impressive to me. What is more impressive to me, there's a few different things I could choose, but I'll just choose one of like a researcher. Craig Keener is a scholar I've read and has studied miracles. And in his own study of it, and he's written a lot of this up, but just in his own experience, he talked in kind of a summing up statement. He talks about how he has interviewed either like firsthand, or sometimes he directly knew the eyewitness, perhaps like 100 or so cases of blindness being healed in the power of prayer for Christianity. And for me, that alone wouldn't be enough, but as a heuristic, it's like, what is my alternative explanation there? Like, either this is happening in other religions as well, or just happening randomly. But well, that's the thing, is it can't really be happening randomly, because we're talking about people directly in Craig Keener's circles, kind of. So that's we kind of know that's not happening. So then it's a little bit more like, is he either exaggerating, being lied to by this number of people? So that would be an example. Like if I knew a really good Muslim scholar and he had a similar account, he wrote all about these miracles and was a very highly credible scholar. And he also says that in his own, community and experience, he's aware of very close in of 100 healings of blindness when praying to Allah. Then yeah, that would be like, okay, that knocks it down.
Okay, so I'm gonna ask you a question. So, like, let's say you took one of these people that he spoke with, and actually you were able to talk to them yourself.
Yeah.
Would hearing it from that person rather than him writing about it, would that be? Would that give you more confidence, or just as the same or less?
Definitely more confidence if it validated what he said. Like if I talked to the specific person and they gave this a similar account and seemed trustworthy. Yeah. Okay.
So let's say this person actually not only was cured blindness, but actually witnessed a resurrection. Would that be something that would be like even more confidence for you, or?
Yeah, it's funny. You run into this catch-22 of, there is this tipping point of the more extreme the miracle gets. At first, it might increase your confidence in the belief of like Christianity, but if you're like a thinking person, at some point you're like, wait, is this person just cuckoo? Like if they see a resurrection and all this other crazy stuff seems to happen around them all the time. But no, if it seemed credible, and I mean, if they said they would witness a resurrection, like I would be like, can I talk to other people that were around then too? But I'll say yes, it does increase. Like if they truly seem trustworthy, and the scholar Craig Keener that I trust, he also trusts this person, then yeah, I'll say it increases it. So
Oh, how Pine Creeky of you! That was almost Flying Man. You just changed the subject
Yeah.
of the miracle to the one miracle that actually matters in his theology. That's the only one that actually matters. All the other ones are just prop ups of that one.
Well, I think what I was wanting to get at was, does the type of miracle happening matter as far as, like, you know, when we talked about a car versus a Ferrari versus a space shuttle,
Mhm.
A miracle can work in that same way, where it's like someone was cured with blindness, someone walked on water, someone was resurrected from the dead. Are they all the same because they're miracles, or is it some are harder to believe or not? I wasn't necessarily trying to change the subject to a specific miracle, but kind of gauge how you like interpret a miracle when the standard of how we know that miracle is the same. Like I heard someone wrote about this, or a lot of people wrote about this, you know?
Yes. You're asking to directly test the standard for the only claim that matters in his theology. I love it. I can give away 5,000 fish any day. Doesn't matter. I don't need that miracle.
Reid, I don't think we can hear you.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, maybe we can do like a Ferrari test, you know, directly analogous or directly relating to whatever claim and evidence they're saying. Like, if God cured me, had a miracle of like getting my headache to go away, would that count as a miracle? Would it, cancer going away, would that count as a miracle? Amputation, would that count as a miracle? Or like death, and like is the ultimate health remedy, I think, for in terms of a miracle. So it's like, yeah, where in terms of these claims should we start weighting it more towards supernatural attribution or just natural attribution? It's like I think he's saying personal incredulity for natural explanations leans towards this other explanation of supernatural explanations, and he has the candidate explanation of a god and this specific god. So I think that's where he's going, and these other miracles kind of support the original claim as well. So yeah, it's good exploration so far. Anything else?
I would also add that it seems like, because you're supposed to start off the base of why you believe a particular belief, but it seems like what he's doing is already accepting that miracles are possible, and then it's helping him confirm them when he hears them, because I mean, as of right now, all you need is a testimony or many testimonies of a miracle in order to establish there's a God that can do it or something like that. You know what I mean? Because I feel like there's acceptance that there's a God that can do this, and then when you hear claims of it happening, that belief already is confirming it rather than the miracle confirming the God. You know what I mean? It's like circular.
Yeah, it's kind of almost like, how confident are you that miracles actually happen on the scale? And what would you need to see to believe that all miracles are made up? It's kind of like the UFO question. Like if all UFOs sightings were just people claiming they saw something or just not identifying something that they saw in the sky, but they weren't actually aliens, how could we tell the difference between that reality in which people are reading between the lines where there is nothing there, and a reality in which aliens do come to visit us? I don't know. It's a tough one.
Yep. All right. Want to see what else is going on here? Keep going. Here we go.
Okay. So hypothetically, I'm not saying I can actually do this, but if I got you in touch with someone that said they were witness to a resurrection, would that give you confidence in that miracle claim? Notice how I didn't give any religious I didn't give any religious specification of which God, which claim, just plain general, like
yes,
totally depends
generic
on
outsider.
claim.
I mean, it totally depends on the details. Like, so I mean, you're just saying if you knew some, okay, if you're just claiming a resurrection, not necessarily in any specific context or anything. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to judge because, like, okay, and maybe this is where I have a little bit of trouble with SE as well, because we measure things against our already, like, our background knowledge, and once again, like, the heuristics.
Yeah, it's very different if if we knew for certain that a God existed and then we came across another resurrection.
Yeah.
That and our background knowledge was solid, like very solid and highly rigorously tested, and we knew that for sure. It's now a not extraordinary claim. It's not as much of an extraordinary claim if we come across another resurrection. So I think it's true. It really is about the background knowledge, but the knowledge is the key word there. How do you know whatever you think the background knowledge is actually knowledge?
Right.
Now we're getting back to square one again.
And if we're talking about the base of Christianity and why you believe it's true, you should stay away from Christianity. Because you're building up to that. If you use it to, it's circular.
It's our already, like, our background knowledge, and once again, like, the heuristics and stuff. So if it depends, like, what context. If you're just saying, hey, this person came back to life randomly, then no, like, that there is no context that gives any further credence to that. So yeah, if you literally just called me up and like, hey, my friend, and I know nothing about this friend, claims to witness someone coming back from the dead. I guess resurrection has religious overtones, which is tripping me up. So someone coming back from the dead who is truly dead. Then my first thought, and this is true of any event, including the ones individually around Craig Keener, my first thought is, I mean, we should go to a natural explanation first. So I would first think that, natural explanation is what we should start with. Yeah.
Okay. So maybe we can dial it back a little bit. And
sure.
Let's say I introduce you to a friend that witnessed someone being cured for blindness. Would that increase your confidence in Christianity, or how would that affect you? Like, they don't even know what exactly happened, but all they know is they were blind and now they can see it.
Right. So to me, it is a bit of a chicken and the egg problem, because the reason why, so if this person claimed that it was under the power of prayer and stuff that this happened, I am likely to be at least open to that. I don't know if it would increase my view of, I don't think it would increase my belief in Christianity, but the only reason I'm considering this individual case is because there seems to already be this heuristic of a larger sample. And once again, the Craig Keener thing, if it was just one guy who happened to have the circle of people that he thought 100 people were healed from blindness, that wouldn't be enough for me either. Obviously, if anyone's listening and wants to look at my other stuff, like, there's a lot of data out there. Like, for me, it's a heuristic. And so if there's already this pattern of what seems like this is happening, and let's say some of it does have medical documentation. Like, actually, one study I really like by Dr. Candy Guthrie-Brown, she actually measured these things happening of people. I don't think they were fully blind, but they went from like 10x improvement in eyesight and vision. So if I feel like I have medical documentation of it happening in this context of prayer here, and then someone else, let's say at that same prayer tent, also claimed to be healed of blindness, then I'm more likely to believe it because a more credible case has already been presented. So I don't know if I'm totally verbalizing this right.
Yeah,
but
I think I understand what you're saying. You're basically saying it's not just based off of testimony. It's based off of verifiable improvement in vision previously, and
what do I want to say here? He's saying he has multiple anecdotal pieces of evidence, and he's also saying he's something about a study, which is like related to, it's like person A prays and gets X benefit. So that's potentially testable. If 1,000 people prayed, like 1,000 blind people prayed, and they all 1,000 were cured of blindness, if they all prayed in the name of Jesus, and another 1,000 people prayed to Allah, and none of them were cured of blindness, that would be big evidence for me. What is he saying is his evidence that a couple people have prayed and they got a little bit better eyesight? Prayed to who, when, and how, where? Could we repeat this consistently and always get this result for like the next 1,000 people? I don't know. That would be interesting. What is that what he's saying?
I think he was more broadly saying, because he mentioned a prayer tent, like, miracles happening because of prayer, whether it's, which God or anything like that. But he was saying generally when he's hearing more accounts of miracles happening because of prayer, or when they prayed versus someone else like doing something else, sacrificing, brain dance, or other methods, I guess. He's saying he puts more weight on whichever tent fills up the most, or more has more quantity.
If we had like the top 10 hospitals in the world in terms of like people going through them for the blind, and we had 5 different prayer tents in the parking lot, 4 for different religions, one as a control, and all of the blind people that usually go in the hospital also on their way out went into these prayer tents, could we see a correlation of like randomly selecting them into the tents? Would we find a correlation in terms of who got cured or not? That would be interesting.
Yeah, that's I think it's taking his. Sorry, go ahead.
No, that was it. Just asking for a prediction is a good way to get somebody to think about their idea.
Yeah, so the God hypothesis would predict if the God answers prayers, if you answer, like if a certain amount of people answer a prayer and get their prayers answered, that would be a prediction of the God hypothesis answering prayers. So can you do this rigorously, predictably? So until I get something like that, I'm going to be skeptical. So what does he currently have, and does it meet that criteria? Let's keep going.
And any other claims that go along with that same heuristic, I think is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Gives a little more confidence to that belief.
Yeah. So I think what happens is some of the way SE works, I end up describing my beliefs in a way, ironically, I don't really hold them. So, but hey, this is good. It makes me rethink, right? So.
Oh, I just saw he's in the chat. Hey, Robert. So yeah, feel free to clarify. And if we're strawmanning you, don't let us strawman you. Thank you.
It starts from, and I think this is where alternative explanations are really important, because of my surveying this miracles data, which is an ongoing thing. I'm not done. I need to keep doing it, and I want skeptics to bring me more non-Christian stuff. I really do. But from my surveying, but some are highly evidenced, some are not as highly evidenced. But when I picture alternative explanations for the evidence, the prima facie evidence that is there, it seems like this stuff is actually happening at the large scope with enough data and enough evidence. So when we pick one out, then I'm like, wait, I think this stuff is going on. So I'm more likely to believe it. And I mean, this is a really complex interplay. This is where I want to really challenge the idea of SE and also really validate it, because it's peeling back the covers, but there is, I mean, all of our reasoning is a spiral, you know, like one thing makes you like question the Bible, and then another thing, like if you're headed outside belief, one thing makes you question the Bible, and then you're more likely to question God because of that. And then maybe you realize you don't have as good a reason about God. And then when you return to the Bible, you're more likely to question the Bible. Like there's a healthy spiral a lot of times, is my point, is that there's a back and forth. So what I'm trying to say is the individual case that you're giving as an example is highly influenced by the larger data, but the larger data wouldn't be there if there weren't some convincing individual cases as well. So there's a back and forth. So it is a little hard to answer. So right now, if you literally said, you really came to me, Eddie, and you're like, my neighbor is a Christian who I trust, and she says she was healed from blindness 20 years ago, so before you knew her. And you said, I think she believes it's true. You know, I don't think she's lying. Like, that doesn't mean it happened, you know. But then because of my other research, for lack of a better word, that will increase my confidence. I don't know if increase. It will further validate. Buffer it. Yeah, validate. Yeah. It will be another piece like that fits in what I think I've seen elsewhere. And it gives me a little bit of a boost. Yeah, it's like, wow, this random person, especially if it came from you, you know, being someone who's not a Christian. So I'm being a terrible SE interlocutor right now, so I apologize.
You're fine. You're fine. You're kind of working.
No, you're thinking through it.
Fine. Great.
Thinking through the thought process and how you're reflecting. That's all this is. You're reflecting on it, and that's awesome that you're comfortable and able to do that. A lot of people get kind of like tense and like they don't like it. I don't think anyone really likes it, but it is also something that's really really good to take a second look. So I guess my follow-up question would be like, well, I guess I have two questions, and I'm not sure which one to ask first. But let's say I up the stakes, and I told you that there are living people right now in the hundreds that witnessed a miracle, and you were able to get in touch with them and hear their miracle, but their miracle, they attribute it to a different God. Mm-hmm. Like, how would that impact you? Would that give some credibility to their claims, or how would that work?
Yes, it would, depending on some of the details, it could certainly knock down the particular part of my belief that sees a pretty high specificity to God working through Christianity. So it would knock down this feeling of like, wait, is there just as much going on kind of supernaturally in this other faith? What does that mean? Does that mean that Christianity, at least on sort of this power level, have nothing more going for it than this other thing?
I think the more basic question would be like, would you be convinced that they were telling, or that what they're saying actually happened? Like if you had 100, 500 people saying they witnessed a resurrection, like would that be enough for you to be convinced that they were telling the truth? Even if maybe you disagree about how it happened, like would you believe them?
Yeah, and so I think this is where it's really important to break it up into layers of different ideas, because it's like I could very easily see it being the case that I'm like, these people clearly think something happened. Like if I talk to them and they're all like wide-eyed and like, yeah, I mean, I could see a situation where it's like something happened here. Like, I don't care if it was the greatest magic trick, whatever, but these people are blown away and they're all saying the same thing. So that would be like step one, you know, and then that's probably as far as I would get initially, you know.
Like something happened. Yeah.
Something happened. like I would use my own best judgment to see if these people seem sincere. Would probably be the first thing. Is this a big hoax, or do they think something really happened? And then if I feel like they think something really happened, then you start analyzing what may have actually happened. And I think this is exactly what you do with alien abduction stories, ghost stories, stuff like that. There's clear separation between hoaxes and people who seem quite sincere, and you have to move to that next level. So that's where it would take me first. It's like,
Any comments so far?
I feel like there's
what you did there.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, you heard him out on the disconfirmation criteria needed to no longer believe in miracles. It sounded like, and you just applied it to Christianity. His disconfirmation criteria for miracles was seeing other religions, right, have more reports of miracles, and so you just took a claim that was within Christianity and applied the same kind of disconfirmation criteria to see if that would invalidate Christianity.
I think that is his reason for Christianity. So he, I think he's saying that his belief in Christianity came from his belief in miracles. And so that I basically just focused on the miracles part. But what I was going to say earlier was like, there seems to be a little bit of a struggle because I'm trying to maintain a foundation aspect to this, where it's like, how do we confirm miracles? What would convince you a miracle happened, and not getting into the nitty gritty of like how, who, what, God, and then that's when it was like kind of like, well, it depends on the circumstances, and it depends on this, it depends on that, and then he mentioned quantity, so we talked about quantity a little bit, about having a huge amount of quantity, but then now it's actually not your God that they are convinced of. So I think really what I was trying to do was trying to in his head, it seems like it's flipped, where there's a Christian God, and therefore there miracles can happen, and therefore it affirms things. And for me, if it were the case that what he's saying is true, is that miracles cause them to believe in Christianity, you really just want to start with miracles, not even realizing Christianity. And so it seems as though when you talk about other religions, he's less sure about it. So I think there's a foundational issue where it's like, I don't know if that's necessarily the foundation. I'm not convinced. You know what I mean?
Hard to say.
I also heard some emphasis on trustworthiness and sincerity. So my questions would be about, like, can somebody be trustworthy and sincere and also still be mistaken, and kind of maybe go down that route. I also see that Robert's in the chat, and he just put up a comment here.
Is Half-Life why I believe the other half is more philosophical? Yeah, we definitely didn't get to everything.
Round two.
Yeah, there should be part 2 in order, hopefully soon.
Yeah, definitely. It's a great talk. So definitely, I encourage you to do another one.
Yeah.
Let's keep going.
They think something happened.
Okay, so like, what would be the tipping point for you to believe what they're saying happened? Like, what would you, if you investigated it, what would be something that you could discover to realize, wow, I'm blown away and I believe them?
Yeah, I mean, this gets into the details of the hypothetical a lot. So like, if it's a resurrection, then you would want ideally, as much medical documentation as possible, like heart stopping, being in the morgue for 3 days, whatever. And no discrepancies of anyone coming out and being like, hey, look, this is a hoax and these other people are lying about it. So there would be this point of getting to, let's say, and I don't know if this is where you're leading, but let's say there is enough of that evidence, then I think the next layer for me would be like either a potentially unexplained event, or I use my own background knowledge of thinking I have other reasons to believe there is supernatural forces generally. And then I think, okay, I don't know exactly what or why, but I think maybe this person actually did come back from the dead. And then, like, for me, it's about having a lot of data if possible. So if we wanted to skip to the end of this in a way, and I hinted at the beginning, is like it would be a fountain of this sort of testimony and data that all of a sudden I wake up one day and I'm looking at, the non-Christian book about miracles and the Christian book, and I'm like, ooh, these are about the same. And then that's gonna do it. Like we all know weird single events happen. Like in another podcast, I said that we all know there's that background noise of weird events. So one-off events, you can still convince someone of a lot from a one-off event. Like a crazy alien story, you can get to this point where like, I have no idea what happened there. This person is freaked out, something affected them, but no one event is going to make you think aliens have really visited, most likely, So that's where I'm at.
Okay. So I'm going to try to repeat what you said just to make sure I understand it.
Sure.
You're basically saying, like, to get to the point where you're convinced that resurrection happened, it would have to be a very, like, it would have to be a lot of people saying that. It would have to be it would have to be also no discrepancies in what they're saying, and it could also, and it would. If other people saying this is a hoax, I was there, that didn't happen, that would kind of tarnish it. But if that wasn't there, if it was just everyone saying the same thing, and I think what you're saying is, and if I'm not, if that's not what you're saying, just let me know, is that the quantity of testimony is compelling to you, and so if enough,
that's a big deal to me. I need a lot of a high quantity. And at least some of it has to be high quality as well. Like if it's just a bunch of hearsay and it's all hearsay, then that's not going to get you anywhere. But it's like the sort of events you're talking about, but as many of those as possible spread out among different groups, different people, different times. That makes it harder because that rules out, a shared hoax, for instance. Like that's basically impossible. So
Okay. When you
guys had or is that?
Oh, my wife is crawling through the room, trying to not be seen. That's not that I had to laugh.
Ignore that.
The thing that comes to my mind is alien sightings or UFO sightings. The reasoning here seems reminiscent of typical like UFO sightings. So that's just what's in my head right now. Just wanted to put that out there.
Mm-hmm.
Because that rules out, a shared hoax, for instance. Like that's basically impossible. So,
Okay. When you mentioned the past, would you say that like personal people that like you can talk to versus someone that are documentation of other people that have seen it, would you say that you value the person that you can talk to now or the documentation? Well, which do you weight more as like convincing?
Definitely, as far as I'd rather talk to someone than hear their written statement later. Now, if it's a difference between talking to someone and seeing a year-old, medical charts validating a miracle, let's say, then I would probably take the charts there. So some of it depends on what we're talking about. But
you could also say like, 1 year medical charts versus live medical charts, like beep, 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 generally speaking, do you think documentation versus a direct source, which do you find more compelling?
More direct is better. generally speaking.
Okay. So, if I were able to give you your current quantity of evidence, but in person, of people that telling you that a particular miracle happened, you would find that more compelling than what you have now.
Yes, I would love to do that. I would love to go meet the 100 people Keener talked about. That would be great.
Yeah.
That would add to it for sure.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Yeah, I think I kind of would leave it at that. And I think I kind of understand, where you're coming from. I'd also recommend looking into Santi Sai Baba. He's a very interesting
Yes. Yeah,
figure.
I was recently on a podcast, and Sam Harris brings him up. I know.
Yeah.
He's the one. This is part of my complaint. There's one person that gets brought up as a counterexample, which is
I get it from Sam Harris. So
yeah, there you go.
Sorry.
And I want to look into him more. But yeah, I mean, just broadly speaking, I want to see something closer to what I think is like a wealth of data. Just curious, are you familiar with this debate at all?
Then you go on to more talking about that, but yeah.
Yeah. What was interesting about that that I noticed now is that he was talking about, quantity is such a huge thing for him, but it has to have some quality to it. So you have to have a certain criteria of quality of evidence, and then the quantity of it just kind of adds on to it. And so I kind of started focusing on quality, and I think what I heard was basically it happening throughout time, and that's for him. That's the quality part of it. If it happens throughout time, I think. Did you guys hear the same thing?
Maybe, yeah, like consistently happening rather than a one-off would be higher quality evidence. I would assume. It's like, what is our threshold of quantity and quality? If we had like 100 quality of like if we had a scale of quality, maybe that's another thing you could have done. Like, what is the quality of evidence in general of like anecdotal evidence, this type of thing? Is it like near a 5 out of 10, 2 out of 10 for this claim? And if we had a bunch of this anecdotal evidence, does that get us to a threshold of like believing the claim?
I guess my other example I might want to use would be like, okay, so there's a lot of people that believed that the Earth was flat,
Right.
and because it has a resurgence and has come back, and people continue to believe that it's flat, is that a quality that gives that evidence, or is that evidence of the quality of that belief?
Yeah, for a while now, I've been
so.
thinking about how much I would enjoy hearing you discuss with Robert on something that you both agree is false, and it could be so many things, like either alien abductions or homeopathy is one that's been coming to mind a lot during this discussion as well. And if you can both agree to something that you both think is false, then you can apply a lot of these same reasons for other scenarios that are not even religiously based, that are based in other things completely. And that could help shed light on these reasons. Yeah.
Yep.
I would think that a reoccurrence of something doesn't necessarily give it weight of truthfulness. It's just human beings, man. They can't let it go. Just kidding.
I really look forward to round 2. Yes, Robert. Evidence it is. How many witnesses, video evidence, etc. Yes, indeed. I have this test stuck in my head. I'm not sure if it's quite relevant, but you can tell me, and Robert could tell me because he's here and listening. What if we were to go grab a stack of miracle stories from Christianity and not Christianity? Let's just say we grab equal numbers, just so we're not biasing the story, but we redact all the information that would let you know which religion it was coming from.
Oh,
Yeah, that'd be good. Yeah.
Would it be interesting to look at those and see which of them are credible and not?
Yeah,
and might that affect the question of because we don't have to disprove the miracles. That's not actually the test here. The test is that Christianity has a disproportionate number of credible miracles compared to the other ones. If there's a lot of specificity about the miracles toward Christianity, you could maybe see a trend in the data. Whereas if we took the data and redacted it, would that trend come through? And if it doesn't, does that change anything? And if that wouldn't change anything, don't worry about it. Mm-hmm. It's just a thought experiment at the moment.
That's a good exercise. I kind of feel bad that now Robert's in the chat, so we're all just like talking about it, and he's like, "No, that's not what I meant." We're like, "Oh, sorry, man."
Does Robert want to come in and speak to us? We could do that.
I think we're at the end, so I don't know.
Think we're near.
Yeah, we are at the end.
But
we are
to join the Discord.
Several of us are very willing to engage in this conversation. I think Eddie, you get first dibs on that. This is your follow up.
Sorry, yeah. I thought you were about to say it's your fault.
That too.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll be in touch, and if we want to do a follow up, I'd definitely be down with that.
But yeah,
I loved his observations about SE, and I always love hearing criticisms of SE. It especially people who know a bit about it, and they've either read some books or they've watched a lot of videos, and they have something to say about it. Man, those always make for the best discussions, because how would I know if I have confirmation bias I'm not aware of? The best way to self-examine my own beliefs about how important I think SE is to talk to other people who have something to say about it. And so I just really liked a lot of what Robert had to say, and it sounded really sounded like he gave it a lot of thought. And so that's why when we were talking about different videos to review today, I thought this one was the one to do, just because he seemed to say a lot. If you haven't seen the full video, it only had 77 views. I was shocked, because it's a good one. So recommend people check it out if they haven't yet.
Yeah, Robert actually read A Manual for Creating Atheist, and did a review on it. So I think if you search his YouTube or maybe his Twitter, you can find it and read it through. But yeah, he definitely did his homework.
I think it's a blog post review. Yeah.
Okay.
But cool. Yeah, feel free, Robert, to join the SE Discord. There's a SE Criticisms text channel. Feel free to put your blog post there.
We love our negative feedback. We really, really value that. Fully, honestly, no joking, no sarcasm.
Yeah. If it's not already there. But yeah, thanks everybody else for watching. We'll do a final plug for everybody. So yeah, I'm Reid, Cordial Curiosity, and go ahead, Eddie, and plug anything you want.
Eddie, my YouTube channel is Deep Discussions, and it is currently on hiatus for the pandemic, but all that content's still there. And I'm also active on Twitter at Deep Discussion 1.
All right, cool.
I'm Nathan. I'm Abstract Activist. You can find me on Twitter at abstract_SE.
Cool. Dali?
I'm Juggling Lessons. I have a YouTube channel where I do live streams with people on the topics of SE. I also host the SE practice events on the Epistemology Discord on the weekends. So come and play with me. Come and talk with me. It's fun.
Mm-hmm. Cool. All right. And thanks everyone for watching again. We will see you next week. Have a good night.
Later, guys.